Thank you.
4 nights? Or?
This is a very special event where Superintendent Connor is going to be speaking with us about charting success at Sarasota County Schools in 2024-25. I'm surprised he still has some voice left because he has been everywhere in Sarasota County talking about such important things that are going on in the schools. Before he begins, please make sure that your cell phones are off, and you know the restrooms are right across the hall. And we will hold all questions until the end. Let me tell you a little bit about Superintendent Connor. He has spent his entire educational career serving students and families in the Sunshine State. Drawn to cultivating educational excellence in himself and others from an early age, he earned his Bachelor of Arts in Middle Grades Education from the University of North Florida and his Master's of Administration and Management from Nova Southeastern University. Superintendent Connor also holds a number of educational certifications, including educational leadership. Highly regarded for his conscientious and uplifting leadership style, Superintendent Connor is committed to reducing the achievement gap, leveraging resources to drive innovations in teaching and learning, and keeping student success at the forefront of Sarasota County Schools' goals and decisions. Every student, every day. Please welcome Superintendent Connor.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to spend about 30 minutes talking about why we're here today, which is educating the community on an upcoming referendum that will be on the November ballot. I want to start after about 30 minutes, we will open it up for questions. But I want to start just kind of giving a recap a little bit about Sarasota County. Many of you are very well connected, and I see you on a regular basis, either at a board meeting or around the community, and you know a lot about the school district. So hopefully you'll learn something new as we jump in. So just a couple of facts, right? So, we are 56 schools strong. That does include our traditional, what I call district managed schools, or traditional public schools, as well as our charter schools. And so 56 schools, 23 being district managed elementaries. We have our middle schools and high schools, 14 in total. And then we have about 14 charter schools as well. We do have a couple of alternatives. We have one alternative school and one school for our significantly disabled students, and we have a virtual school. We also have a technical college. If you didn't know that, yes. Absolutely. Is that working?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, and so that's a little bit of a breakdown of our schools. We are up almost 6,000 employees strong, with about half of those being our instructional staff, including teachers, counselors, and psychologists. We run over 4 million miles every school year in transportation, with over 200 routes and over 300 buses. We also have food services of about 5 million meals per year that we serve our students. That's over 7,600 breakfasts every day, over 22,000 lunches every day. So it's a big operation, and it's very, very people-driven. This is the people business, right? So when you look at our budget, our operating budget is about a little over $500 million. When you take it all in total, you look at our entire budget, you're looking at about $1.7 billion. And that includes capital outlay, our federal dollars that we get. But the operating budget is really where those day-to-day expenditures come in, such as salaries and how we support our teachers. So it is very people-driven in education. That's how we make the magic happen, is with the great talented workforce that we have. And so you can imagine that over 70% of our operating budget is our salaries and benefits. So we are proud to now have our 21st aide since the inception of district grades back in 2004. We have earned an A grade out of the state of Florida. And how does that happen? There are many factors that are involved in that. One of them being third grade literacy, but we are graded over a course of several components, from ELA proficiency, reading proficiency, growth, how students are progressing year to year, those students who are performing in the lowest quartile, how they're growing, math proficiency, overall gains, science, social studies, acceleration. If you don't know what acceleration is, that's when you're taking coursework that's a little ahead of the game. So if you're a middle schooler and you've actually been successful taking high school courses, that's middle school acceleration. If you're in high school and you're taking college level courses such as dual enrollment, AP, ACE, and IB, that's high school, or what we call college and career acceleration. We get credit for that when students do well. Graduation rates are a big part of the program there. And so when you take all of those cells together and you look over the last 4 years, you can see we made some significant growth over the last year. It's been a very successful year. To me, it's like, good job, because usually in the first year of a transition of a superintendent, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of instability. You're coming in, you're laying down you're analyzing, you're learning, and to be able to end the year with growth in every one of those cells, we felt like, wow, that was a very tremendous accomplishment of our teachers to really galvanize and make sure that we are moving the needle. And so we increased to 49 points. We are ranked 5 out of all 67 school districts in the state of Florida. And really, when you break that down, we have 14 charter schools in our school district, but that we don't actually have oversight of. We don't get to manage those. And the school districts ahead of us, combined, the 4 districts, have 1. So there's a little bit of a challenge there when you have about 15% of your school population under the purview of a district managing another management system versus the district. And so to be 5th and to be as large as we are, there's really a great accomplishment. So during this year, I had the opportunity to conduct what I call a transition plan. Very robust plan that was designed to help me learn as much about the school district as I could, to explore all of the reports, the audits, the data, everything I could get my hands on, just spending what I call the first 100 days entrenched in learning, exploring, and analyzing as much as I could. And that involved speaking to a lot of people, speaking to small groups, one-on-ones, large groups, teachers, principals, parents. And so in that first 100 days, we were able to aggregate a lot of that data, a lot of the feedback, and that led to a revamping of our strategic plan. So the strategic plan now is called the Every Opportunity Plan, Strategic Plan 2030. So the goal is by 2030, we are really knocking it out of the park in all those metrics that I showed you, but really truly meeting the needs of every student every day. Within that plan, it all starts with a vision, right? And, I was really adamant that we see ourselves in the landscape of school choice, and that has exploded, right? We know that school choice options are a reality that we're facing, and the old traditional neighborhood school model has become smaller and smaller and smaller. And people are opting and people have choice, which I think is a great thing, right? When you create what I call a competitive market, then that absolutely helps us get better at what we do. And so, as the superintendent of the traditional public schools of Sarasota County, my vision, our vision as we worked on this was, let's be the best. Let's be the premier educational provider. We know parents can go to traditional public schools, they can choose charter, they can choose private, they can choose homeschool. There's so many options, virtual school. We wanted to be the best provider, the premier education provider of Sarasota, so that's where we came at. And we know that things are always changing, and we're preparing kids for jobs that don't even exist today, right? Who would have not thought just 5 years ago? Artificial intelligence wasn't even in our vernacular. Now it's becoming commonplace more and more each and every day. So it's to prepare them for that ever-changing world to be successful citizens, hopefully right here in Sarasota County. That plan is built upon 5 pillars that I believe are very, very important to the success of the school district. The first one being student achievement, right? That's our core mission. We want our students to be successful. We want to make sure they can do the very things that we expect them to do to be productive citizens, which is first read, write, speak, listen, have all of the qualities that we want to see a successful citizen have. Critically think, all of those things. And so what we do in that first pillar around every student achieves is make sure that they have all those components to do those things. And that comes around supporting our teachers with the right professional learning opportunities to meet the needs of our students and make sure that they're getting that exposure to rigorous content on a daily basis, that they can master the standards that are set forth by the state. Now, literacy is not just for some students, but for all students. How do we address that in each and one of our classrooms? And then equipping students for life. We do understand that not every child chooses to go to college. We prepare students for any option that could be available to them. So that if every child chose to go to college, we did our job in preparing them for that. But if they don't, did we prepare them and give them access and opportunity to be successful in a career or the military or whatever option they choose? So that the pillar up there that says equipping students for life really focuses on that workforce training, workforce development, those accelerated course options if they are going to a 4-year university. But we have to give kids that opportunity in order to do that. Pillar 2 is every student supported. We want to make sure that this is kind of going in and out, so we have to handle that. Every student supported is we know that, while we focus on the core mission of academics, that we do have to overcome barriers. Attendance, sometimes there's challenges that are at home that have to be overcome. And so we have support mechanisms such as counselors, psychologists, social workers to help students feel supported in school so that they can do their very best academically. And that's what Pillar 2 is all about. So how do we design that strong student support so that we can respond to students when there's a need for that student? And that need could be a variety of different things, right? Maybe behavioral, maybe something happening outside of their control at home that's affecting their ability to be successful in school. It also is about engaging the whole child, because while academics is our core mission, we do understand the importance of the whole child. We want students to feel connected to their school, whether that's sports, whether that's the arts, whatever it is that makes that child tick. We want to be able to help them flourish in that area. And it's all about relationships as well. In Pillar 3, it's about every employee value. I started off to tell you that we are a people-driven business. That's how we don't produce widgets, right? We need talented individuals to inspire our students to be the critical thinkers and to be the citizens. If we don't have the employees to do that, we can't deliver on that mission. So it's all about making sure that we're keeping the talent that we have, we're recruiting new people in to the profession, we're retaining them, and we're recognizing them, that they're valuable to us. And so that comes through, obviously, some of the basic things like good compensation. We want them to feel like they're being valued, they can have a competitive wage, they can live, right? Cost of living can be a challenge, especially here in Sarasota. That they have opportunities to grow. That we're giving them professional learning because people want to feel like they're growing. They don't want to feel stagnant. They want to feel like they're contributing. Doesn't mean they all want to be an administrator or a principal or a superintendent. They want abilities to grow and maybe lead in other capacities. So how are we providing them opportunities to do that? And then being innovative in staffing. The world has changed over the last, I've been in this for 21 years and it's changed a lot just in 21 years. So we have to be innovative in how we approach this, because when we're saying we want to have really robust workforce pathways, I'll use nursing as an example, healthcare. I have to be innovative of how we attract people from the healthcare industry to come teach our students because they can make so much more money being in the healthcare industry. So how do we entice people to come into our profession to do that? And that takes some innovation and it takes some collaboration with our partners. Pillar 4, every school equipped. One of the things I can tell you, having worked, now this is my 4th school district, we have some beautiful facilities. We have some great infrastructure here in Sarasota County. We need to maintain that. We need to build upon that. I don't know if you had a chance, but tonight actually is Booker High School's BPA grand opening. If you haven't seen their Visual Performing Arts Center, it is out of this world. And we want to be proud of the infrastructure and the buildings that we have, and that changes the whole climate of the school when you're able to walk and feel proud about your buildings that you're in. It also is important to have the right infrastructure. Technology is ever changing. We want to make sure we have the latest Wi-Fi access points, the latest technologies, all of that infrastructure to stay on the cutting edge. And then, more importantly than that we're staying on top of the safety, having that multi-layered approach to safety and security, that we don't just rest. One of the things I think can be the biggest challenge for any school district is to say, oh, nothing bad can ever happen to us. We're good. I can tell you, Parkland never thought it could happen to them. And we saw some tragedy there. We've seen some recent tragedies right in Georgia, not far from us. So it's being vigilant. It's making sure that we're taking a multi-layered approach. It's leveraging our people, but it's also leveraging the latest technology. I talked about artificial intelligence. And I'll share a little bit about how we're doing some of those things with safety and security. And then pillar 5 is every community engaged. So I always say from Newtown to Northport, every community in between has their own specific needs. And so me getting out and listening and engaging with the community has been a very important aspect of the last 13 months that I've been on the job, and knowing how we can leverage our business partners, our community partners, our faith-based partners, our foundation. We have such a strong philanthropic community here, and they are so willing and have been so helpful for us in helping to deliver on our mission in a variety of ways. And then just volunteers, just having people to come into our schools and feel welcome and contribute to the success that we're able to provide our students. There's a lot of wisdom here in Sarasota, and we want them to come impart some of that wisdom right in our classrooms with our students. So that's our strategic plan in a nutshell. It gets much more deeper than that. If you really want to get deep, I have an 85-page strategic plan report you are more than welcome to look at. It's on our website. But at least give you an overview. This is the result of the 13 months of work. We really feel like we're on the right track to take Sarasota to the top. But the real reason why we're here is to talk about the referendum. So if you didn't know, breaking news, the referendum is going to be on the general ballot this year. And you say, well, what's so good about or different about that? It's the first time that it ever has been on the November ballot. It used to be that a special election could be called, which I think that has primarily been the way that our referendum has been voted on, as well as for a primary. Some districts have chosen primaries. The state law changed, that can no longer happen. You cannot have a special election, you cannot have a primary election. You have to put it on the general. So there's some changes to that, right? That means it's going to be obviously a greater turnout. And so that the impetus for me is to educate more people to understand. Those people may not know what exactly the referendum is, even though that it is a continuation of a millage referendum over the last 22 years. We have a lot of new people that come to Sarasota every 3 to 5 years. There's a lot of turnover, and they may not know. And so it's really important that we get out there and share the message. So I'm so glad to give you the opportunity to do that today. So let's get down to the details. What is the ballot language? What does it look like? So supervisor's election is very clear and very detailed about what you can and can't do. There's some laws around that. 15 words in your title 75 words in the ballot language, so that people truly understand what it is they're voting on. It was really important that in the title we start with continues, keyword continues funding. This is not a new tax. This has been existing. And in fact, it's 1 mil of all the bills that you pay, which right now I believe is for the county. If anybody know what that is, I can tell you it's gone down year after year. As property values have gone up, the millage rates have gone down. So, but for us, it's 1 mil. So in Sarasota County, we get, the school district gets $1 for every $1,000 of assessed value of a home, or a property, I should say, that comes to the district. So an example of that, a $300,000 assessed home, let's just say that includes all the exemptions that are in place for that, would get $300 towards the school district for the 1 mil. So that's what that means. So, continues funding for teachers, workforce training, student achievement through the renewal of ad valorem Millage Referendum. That's the title. Shall the Sarasota County School District continue the 1 mil per year ad valorem millage to retain and recruit quality teachers, or to provide workforce training, improve school safety and security, preserve the arts, upgrade technology and classroom resources, and fund other educational programs and school operational needs, beginning July 1st, 2026, I want you to key in on that, ending June 30th, 2030, and sharing funds with charter schools proportionate with student enrollment with oversight of all funds by an independent committee of citizens. So that is the ballot language. We're going to jump into each of the pieces of that so you know how those funds will be used. So the current referendum dollars that we received over the last year is $104 million, or about 20% of our operating budget. That's a pretty significant chunk of the pie. So without that, there's some critical things that we're going to have to consider in terms of what do we do without that. Now, very optimistic that this community understands the importance why we've invested over 22 years into this additional funding that really sets us apart from all other school districts. I talked about a lot of this, but I do want to point out that every dollar collected from the 1 mil ad valorem stays right here. It doesn't go to Tallahassee. It doesn't go to Washington, D.C. It stays right here in Sarasota County. We get every penny of it back here. So the first thing is, this really does focus, and what I think is major, is around attracting high-quality educators. And that includes instructional and non-instructional employees. I told you, again, this is a people business, and without high-quality educators in the classroom, we can't deliver on our mission. And so, a big portion of this, as you can see, we're dedicating, of the 104, roughly, let's just say, at the end of the day, by the time this goes into effect, let's assume that there'll be somewhat of an increase. If you look at historically, we've probably seen maybe 3% on average increase in revenue every year as a result of property values going up. So by 2026, let's say it's 110 million that we're collecting. We've created a projected budget of what we would do. And so 28 million annually would be prioritized to making sure that we can stay competitive with salaries. So that, and we were talking about this right before we started, is Sarasota, fortunately, is one of the highest teacher average salaries in the state of Florida. And that really has been a result of the existing millage that's in place. Extending the school day, you may not know this, but there's 30 minutes extra built into the calendar each instructional day. So that's equivalent to 18 school days per year. So think about it. Over the course of your 12-year progression, from say 13 years, K-12, you get an additional year of instruction as a result of the referendum. So Sarasota County school students are getting more time on task, more instructional time. So imagine what an additional year of instruction over the course of that career is providing our students in being successful. We want to dedicate, I talked about teachers being able to grow and evolve as educational, teachers are they want to continue to grow. They just have that desire, innate desire to do that. So we want to stay on top of that, providing them opportunities to do that. And then some of our schools require some additional staff. When we need additional support at say Oak Park, which is one of our schools that services some of our students with significant disabilities, having the ability to have extra paras or an extra teacher to help support really is necessary, and the funding has gone to that and will continue to. So you may have heard a lot in the news around workforce training, because I think businesses, legislatures, school districts realize that not every student is college bound. They're not going to go there, even though we prepare them for that option. But there are some really great careers that students can enter into the workforce if they have the opportunity to do that. And so how that happens, a lot of school districts, including us, are really focused on looking at what are the economic demands right here in this county locally that we can help supply students, employers, some employees going right into the workforce. And I talked about one, healthcare is one of them. You think about Northport with the Sarasota Memorial Hospital we can build down there. You got the one in Venice. We are exploding. I talked to the CEO of Sarasota Memorial Hospital. They have major needs in healthcare. And that's not just nurses or doctors, but that's the whole gamut. Think about all of the things that it takes to run a hospital. Where can we plug in as a school district to help fulfill that need? Construction is another one. Construction is booming all over the place, whether that's commercial or homes. So we have dedicated a lot of resources in creating construction academies to train students and give them the certifications to go right into the workforce. So when we talk about workforce training, we're talking about the local needs right here in Sarasota County. Now, not only, we want kids to be able to explore and do anything that they want to do in their life, whether that's cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing. They have over 40 CTE programs and pathways that you can choose from. And we really have gotten specific about what those pathways look like. They need to be high wage, high demand. Listen, no offense to some of these great programs, but they haven't been categorized as high wage, high demand. And so we've had to make some tough decisions about, do we keep this program, even though the kids may like it, but is it going to result in a career for them? Are they going to be able to make a good living? And so we can do anything, we can't do everything, right? So we always are having those conversations around what programs are going to meet the needs, not only of the community, but really set the student up for success. You may not know this, but we actually have a polytechnical high school in Sarasota that really focuses on, there's a ton of programs, a lot of engineering, a lot of digital design, a lot of things going on in the technology sector of that school that is really successful at Suncoast Polytech. And it's actually connected physically to our technical college. So kids can actually be right there on site. We have over 10,000 students in at least one or more CTE programs. We talked a lot about safety and security, and I just wanted to tell you that having been around many school districts in the state of Florida, served in 4 of them, Sarasota really does make this a very, very, very high priority. Not many school districts have 6 campus security aides on a high school campus and 2 resource officers. Not many school districts have even had perimeter gates around their school campuses. We're still struggling with that. There are so many school districts that have very, very gaping holes. Now, are we foolproof? Absolutely not. No one is immune to a bad decision that someone wants to make. But how do how do we mitigate that in a moment's notice and respond immediately because it's a matter of seconds? That's what we're always looking for. So we have single points of entry. We have vestibules that are highly secure. You can't get through there unless you're buzzed in. We have our doors that are all locked at all times. We are deploying weapons detection. We're using artificial intelligence to make it less obtrusive so people aren't having to empty all their pockets, but they can walk through, and artificial intelligence is able to recognize the shape, the density of objects that are in your pocket or in your backpack, and are able to make determinations of whether to buzz off and then be checked. And that's worked very well at Riverview High School as we deployed that system this year. And we started it last year. And we're going to be deploying that across all of our high schools eventually. And I can tell you, having a daughter there and hearing the feedback from her and other students as well as the staff, it's going very well. You know, we don't ever want our schools to feel like a prison or TSA, but there's been a sense of comfort with that, to know that, hey, if something were to happen, we know that we've at least checked our students, which just helps in strengthening that confidence that they're safer, right? I would say one of the biggest vulnerabilities is what a student might carry in their pocket onto campus. And so having that has been really good. We also are using artificial intelligence because we have 4,800 cameras across all of our schools in Sarasota County. So a high school could have 120, 150 cameras around the campus. We partnered with OmniAlert, which is a company that uses AI to, as soon as a weapon is detected on the camera system. So if, for instance, someone were to pull out a weapon out of their pocket, the camera is in sight, it will create a crisis response immediately to those in the school to lock the school down, and then the SRO can respond directly to that immediate threat. So we're using technologies to help keep our schools safe, is the point. And we're going to continue to use the funding from the referendum to have things like our school resource officers, the technology, making sure we're investing in proactive measures. I've talked a lot about reactive, but hey, we need to be proactive, having good mental health support, behavior specialists, and counselors to make sure we're in tune about what's going on in kids' lives to help prevent or mitigate the situation from happening. And then we talked about the whole child. You know, I'm always about data, academics, and the core mission of why we're here. But it is not lost on me how important developing the whole child is. And this referendum over the last 22 years has really been beneficial to preserving arts programs, and not just preserving them, but enhancing them to a level that I haven't seen in my time. It's just incredible, some of the programs that we have, whether you're talking about the arts, the choral programs, the VPAs that you go and you see at our campuses are really second to none. And so we want to continue that tradition of excellence in our enrichment opportunities, giving kids every opportunity from K-12 to experience the arts, music, and physical education. And so that's what this is doing in terms of the dollars that are allocated there. And we talk about enriching experiences. It's not just that. Arts and Music PE, it's also those academic programs. They cost money, right? When you have IB, you have ACE, you have dual enrollment, there's a cost associated with that you don't necessarily get funding for. And so we want to continue to give those experiences to students so that they can reach their full potential. And then the last, but certainly not least, is student achievement. That's what it's all about, making sure that they're excelling academically. And it would be great if every child came into kindergarten and they all learned a year's worth of growth in 1 year. They all went to first grade, ready for first grade, and no one fell behind, and they all learned a year's worth of growth, and they went to second grade. But the reality is, just like right here in this room, we all learn at different rates. Some of us may get it faster, some of us may take a little more time, and when students do fall behind, it starts to compound, and we need to have the right appropriate supports and interventions in place So developing a really strategic model of how do we intervene when kids are falling behind through the use of personnel, strategic use of personnel with one-on-one interventionists, using literacy coaches to help develop teachers. All of that helps get us where we need to be to make sure students are successful. And that is in human capital. It's people that make the difference, not a program. You can't put a kid on a computer. It can help, there's supplements, but they're not what's going to do it. So we invest in literacy coaches and interventionists. We look at how do we help support our students whose first language is not English. And that's on the rise. We want to be able to support those students. How do we have data coaches to help teachers? The load is tough for a teacher. Not only are they having to teach, but they got a plan. They have to teach. They have to grade. They have to contact parents. They have lunch duties. There's so much that a teacher has to do. So when we can support them with things like a data coach to help access their student data and help them determine what their next steps are, that's going to lighten their load, which is going to create less burnout and support student achievement ultimately. And then, of course, our enrichment opportunities such as before and after school programming, as well as our summer learning programming, which all come with an additional cost to do that. So that is it in a nutshell. Those are the 5 areas. So we talked about attracting high-quality teachers, safety and security, workforce, enriching learning experiences, and promoting student achievement. Those are the 5 major areas. You saw how we're breaking that down. Those dollar amounts, again, are all projected. So we don't know exactly what revenue would come in, but based off historical data, we're able to make some projections there. And that's what it would look like over the course of 1 year in terms of that breakdown. And then this is what it would look like over the course of the 4-year period. So one thing I forgot to mention is, why are we going out to vote in 2024 for a referendum that starts in 2026? Well, that really does have to do with the general election this year. We were to wait to the next general election in 2026. There will be a lapse in the current referendum. Voters in Sarasota County voted on this in 2022. That referendum is in place until 2026. When you vote on it in 2026, it really doesn't start collecting until 2027. So there would be a lapse. And so we want to prevent that by going out this year, which a lot of school districts in Florida are having to do. If you want to know exactly what the referendum is funding at any individual school here in our county, you go to our website, sarasotacountyschools.net/referendum. There is a robust webpage that has videos, explainers, infographics, FAQs, and it also breaks down exactly what positions are funded at every school in the county. And this is just one example of Ashton Elementary School, how much the referendum funds, 14 positions, and what they are, and what that looks like in their total budget. And that really helps the communities, especially our parents who want to know, what does this referendum do for me? Well, they can look at their school and see exactly how this supports that particular school. And that is it. So I guess I will stop there. Went a little over, but I will take questions.
Actually, I have 3 questions. The charter schools, you mentioned that you don't have oversight on the charter schools. Aren't there charter schools within the public school that you do? And are they not part of the 14, or how does that, what's the breakdown?
So I can tell you, I can understand why any person in the public would be confused about this. So charter schools are considered public schools, but the difference being that they have their own governing board, and the money essentially is given to us as Sarasota County Schools, and is passed through to them, and then they operate their schools independent of our district and schools. So they're connected to us through the funding formula, and they have to be approved by our school board in order to operate in our district. But then when they're up and going, they have their own governing board, and they do not report. The superintendent does not have day-to-day management oversight of any of our charter schools.
Okay, and those are for-profit charter schools?
So all charter schools by law are nonprofit schools. Some do partner with for-profit companies to help manage their schools. So if they're nonprofit, they can say, we're going to partner with Charter Schools USA to help run our operation for us.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, by law, all charter schools are nonprofits, but they do contract with management companies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I've been in Sarasota for a long time, and I remember when Booker was a neighborhood school, and it became what was considered a magnet school. So the magnet school, and that's when they did the performing arts and created this magnet school for Booker High School. So that is different from a charter school then.
That is right. So
Okay.
yes, Booker is a traditional managed public school. Magnet schools are our schools.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Second question.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the whole child, are we also talking about learning courtesy, emotional, all of those things that go with getting along with the other students? Is that part of the whole child?
Absolutely. So we want to make sure that we're creating productive citizens, and that is, how do you get along with others? How do you emotionally regulate when you're having a challenge? How do you overcome barriers in your life? How do you overcome conflict with another individual? Those things still occur. And I know there's been a lot of talk about social, emotional, and all of learning and all of that. Those things still occur in terms of how we instruct students on being resilient. How do we instruct them on overcoming challenges? That does occur.
Okay. My third question is, in Georgia, I understand that the teachers on their ID cards had on the back of it a panic button. And that was a new thing that they had just started in that. And that panic button was, from what I understand, important in getting a rapid response to that. Are you considering looking at that kind of technology?
So we absolutely have to have that in the state of Florida. That is something that we're required to have. Now, they use Centegix, which was a specific vendor. And I'm familiar with that because I used that when I was in Hillsborough. And it was a card that you press a button, and that would initiate a response, depending on how you hit the button. We use something a little different. It's through a phone app, and there's also buttons in the classroom that can be initiated with just pushing the button, and it's called Raptor. They essentially do the same thing, they're just a little different in how the approach of how that happens. You can use your cell phone, you can use the buttons on the wall, but it will initiate a lockdown.
The same. Okay.
Great questions.
I have a question. So I know that a portion of the millage, if this passes, would go to charter schools. And we have no say over how they use that money. They don't have to have the same plan. Who knows what they're going to use it for. When you're figuring what the district schools would get and how you would be using it, and I love the way it's laid out, I think it's wonderful. Have you considered the portion that would go to the charter schools? So what is it that you think they do?
So it's interesting, right? So there is a little bit of what I would say a responsibility of our charter schools to use the dollar as intended. The voters are voting on a specific, look. Let's start. There we go. So the voters, this question is going to be presented to the voters of Sarasota County. So we're saying, as a school district, now the charters fall under our school district. I don't operate them, but they still are part of our school district. Is that we're saying to the voters, these are the things we're going to use the millage referendum for. So there is a level of accountability for our charters to use the money to attract teachers, to use it for workforce training, to use it for safety and security, technology, all of the things listed here. So if we were to say, wow, why did you go use all yours to have carnivals every day? I think we would have a legal grounds to hold them accountable to that. Because this is what voters are voting on. Now, by law, we have to have that last piece in there, sharing funds with charter schools proportionate with student enrollment. That's how we know how much money they're going to get. Based on how many students are in their schools, it's allocated kind of on a per pupil basis. Right now, it's around $13 million in total for all 14 of our charter schools. Yes.
What is meant by the Independent Committee of Citizens?
Oh, thank you for pointing that out. So right now we have what's called a financial advisory committee, and our school board members all choose one representative from the community to serve on that committee. I am a member of it, our CFO is a member of it, but it's actually chaired by a community member. One of the main functions of the Financial Advisory Committee, they serve as the Independent Committee of Citizens to look at the oversight, they have oversight of how we're spending it. So we meet with them quarterly to talk about how those funds have been spent. And it's their job to look at that, make sure that are they spending money as they said they would, according to the ballot language, and then provide any suggestions from there. So we do that every year, and then we also, after they do that quarterly, we also do an annual report to the board to share with the community as well. And all of those meetings are public meetings, so anyone can attend those as well.
How many citizens are on that committee?
There are currently 5, one for every board member.
One for every board member?
So we have our school board, so
Right.
each board member picks one community member to serve on that committee.
And that's how those are chosen. They're chosen by the
board.
school board.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do they make those choices?
Usually it's someone, I believe they're using someone within their district. So, there's a district in which the board members live, a boundary of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they're all picking those, a representative. And typically they have a financial background. Many of them do. But they can be a business owner, they can be a variety of things. But a lot of them have, I think, the board members have been attuned to choosing someone with a financial mind so that they can contribute to the conversation in that way with more of an expertise over finances, even though school budgeting is a little different than your home budget. And so that's what I believe has been the thrust of most of their picks, is someone with that financial expertise and someone that lives within the boundaries for their area. But there is a board policy on exactly how that criteria is chosen, our financial advisory committee policy. And they serve for the term of the board member. So when a board member changes, the new board member coming in gets the ability to select someone.
I'm not sure exactly how to phrase this question, but these are pretty turbulent times right now. And the last few days in Manatee County schools have been, I'm sure, very disturbing for many people there. And I worry about our kids in schools. And I'd like to know what happens at 2 o'clock in the morning when you wake up and you start thinking about that, and what can be done, and how is Sarasota County approaching that?
So I'm taking the lead, you're talking about safety, right?
Yes.
Safety.
Yes.
Yes, it's been definitely challenging the last couple of weeks. I think I don't know if it's just 9/11 or the recent tragedy in Georgia, but nationwide right now, there has been a spike in these false reports, non-credible threats, and they're flooding our anonymous tip line. I don't know if you're aware that Florida has what's called Florida by Florida, which is a website where you can go in and anonymously, let us know, inform us of a threat or whatever is going on. So as of July 1st, Sarasota County had 109 as of yesterday, 109 of those. But we got 54 of those since the Georgia incidents just a couple of weeks ago. So a real big influx right there. I know in Hillsborough, just having been the connection there, they had 181 in one day. One day. And what it does is not only does it create a fear and anxiety that something terrible may happen, but it expends our resources, our time, our energy, our efforts chasing down every one of those. Because when you get those reports, you've got to investigate them as if all of them. You can't ever go, well, that was a fake one. How do you know? You don't.
Wow.
And so it spends a lot of time and resources. Now, technology is what it is, and we're able to use that to help us identify who's doing this. So we have been very successful in catching many of these false threats. Unfortunately, some of them are just students, young kids that have made bad choices. But we have to have a very zero tolerance approach to this because they have to understand how serious it can't be. Oh, I was just joking. Oh, I was just having fun. So you're educating our kids on the importance of when you see something, you say something. You do not use these platforms in any kind of joking manner or trying to have fun or you're trying to get out of school or whatever. And if you do, the seriousness of that will lead to arrest, which we made 3 arrests just in the last week. And you're going to be put up for expulsion for a minimum of 1 year. So you're going to leave your school. And I'm taking a hard approach, a hard stance on that because you don't understand really, people don't see it from behind the scenes, how much time and energy is taken for every one of those threats. And we can't bog down with jokes. And
How are you engaging the families, the parents, the caregivers in helping to set that tone, that expectation as well among the students?
Well, there was a recent video I put out that was kind of a stern message. First off, it's just like, listen, parents, we need your help. You've got to know what's going on social media with your students. You have to be talking to them. You've got to be engaged in what's happening. I know it's difficult. I've got 2 teenagers. I know. I'd be the first to say, I'm not sure I can tell you everything that's happening on the phone all the time. So it's a constant battle that parents have. I understand that. But you have to have those tabletop conversations with your kids. You have to be engaged. And so we're communicating that. We're putting out information as much as possible about these incidents too, just to keep people in the community informed. You've got to be very transparent about it because in the absence of information, there tends to be a lot of negative thoughts, right? Your mind goes to the worst case scenario. And so I've always taken the approach and the philosophy of tell as much as we can without obviously revealing people's identities and creating that type of issue, but being transparent to let people know that we are here and what resources are available if they need us, and then what we're doing as a response to these threats.
What has been the most recent financial impact to the school district of the voucher school choice legislation?
Well, the most recent, so you have to understand that we get those actual dollar amounts in what I would say in the rear, right? It takes us time for the state to report back to us exactly who's taking advantage of the FES scholarships. Because the system, the way it is right now, is that you can sign up your child to take a scholarship and say, I want my child to go to this private school. You may change your mind. or you may be put on a wait list, or there may be a variety of reasons. But since you have put your information with Step Up for Students, the state's going to go ahead and move that money over there. And let's just say you did that, but you said, you know what, you're going to have to go back to your district school for now, until we can either take that opportunity or we change our mind and say we're not going to do it. And now I'm educating those students on our dime, or really with no funding. And the reconciliation of that has been as long as 18 months to 2 years before we know, because the state reporting on who is taking the vouchers is lagged that much. And that's the challenge right now for us. As part of our legislative platform is to make that system more efficient, more accurate, so that we can know exactly, we can account for who's taking it. So to answer your question, it comes very late before the state says, okay, we've got it all figured out, this is how much money went towards that, right? Because the dollars are following, essentially they're following the student, right? That $8,000 should be following the student. So if we lose those students right now, I would say we were about 10 million over the last year when you take the number of students who opted for the FES scholarship. I don't know what that impact is this current year because we won't have that data for a while.
Okay.
So does that money, it never comes back to the district once it's gone? Or if the student comes back, then the money comes back? Or how does that work?
Eventually it should, right? So we had 130 students in that situation 2 years ago that we educated that opted originally to take the FES, didn't end up taking it. We didn't get that funding back for almost 2 years. It was 2 years before we got that money back. But we did eventually get it.
Other questions?
What's your role in integrating the decisions of the local and state government that affect Sarasota County schools?
The local, as in our county commissioners?
County commissioners, Board of Education.
Yeah. So locally, I mean, there hasn't really been a lot of impact, at least in the 13 months, directly affecting our schools as a result of the county commission's decisions. In fact, if anything, there's been some positive. They recently put a grant out that we applied for, that we received $7.5 million from our local county commission for workforce training. So if anything, I can say that's been a very positive. So I work very closely with all of our city managers, and I talk to our county commissioners. Nothing directly other than the example I gave you has been at that local level so far. But I'll tell you, at the state level, a lot of advocacy goes on. We have a legislative platform that we've created that the board approves, and they all say these are the things we want to see as priorities in the legislature. We have a lobbyist that we contract with as a school district. They're called Capital City Consulting, who go and advocate on our behalf for those pieces, and we've been successful. Last year, all of our priorities in some way were not honored necessarily, but they were addressed either in full or in partial as a result of our efforts. So I meet with, I have face-to-face meetings with Joe Ruters and James Buchanan and Fiona McFarland, our local representatives here, delegation, to talk about our needs. And like VPK being one of them. I know Fiona has really been focused on VPK, which we are as well. And so that's a great partnership that we can go in and advocate at the state level around how we increase funding for VPK for our students, because we know that's so important.
Are there any other questions? Well, I want to say this has been an amazing hour with Superintendent Connor.
Thank you so much.
His knowledge, his commitment, and his sincerity are so evident. They've been evident tonight. They're evident at school board meetings, which I don't know if you been to a school board meeting, I encourage you to, if you can't go, at least watch them online, because they really are fascinating. But this has been just a wonderful opportunity for us, and we are so grateful for you coming tonight. So thank you. Let's say.
Okay, we're done.